Hello and welcome to the game of sales and marketing. This live show I have every Wednesday, and this is the third time I'm doing it in English because from New Year I started to do them in English. And today I'm so happy because for like 4 years ago I met a guy called Jesper Sylvester, or his name is Jesper Sylvester, and I met him because I was in Denmark and was going to arrange Elevate together with Thomas Rex. And he said, I have a really cool guy we need to meet. And he's really good on online marketing and he's creative and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to meet him. And we had a dinner. And I was like, sometimes you just meet people that you think like, wow, I need to meet this guy again. Or really made a big, or this girl or this guy or whatever, make a big impression. And you did that, Jesper. So I'm really thankful that you could join this live show.
You are so nice. Thank you, Peter. And it was definitely mutual. It was a mutual experience. I've never met a nice person from Norway. So
and I never met a nice person from Denmark. You're the first one, so it's the same.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That was so sweet of you. Thank you.
Yeah, but I really mean it. And we call this. We're going to talk about a little bit of dreams today, and in you have something called DreamCatcher. Is that what they call it?
It is, yeah. It's a journal and an action planner that I published, earlier this year. So yeah, very exciting.
So tell me a little bit. You are an entrepreneur, and when did you start like an entrepreneur, or how did you start it?
Well, so I started. I think it's about 10 years ago now. And the way I started wasn't that thought out, because I was in a sales executive job in a media company, and I've been working with sales and marketing in tech industries and the cellular phone industries for basically forever. And at some point, I just stopped finding that inspiring. I didn't know that was what happened at the time. I just felt that I didn't want to go to. I just didn't feel like going to work anymore. And at the same time, I was in this weird process of self-development myself, and there was a lot of stuff that going on, and I was like discovering the world. And at the same time, I saw this documentary that called The 11th Hour, who was made by Leonardo DiCaprio, who was basically talking about climate change and all the effects that it had, and it showcased a lot of the biggest sinners in climate change, in pollution, and I saw that a lot of the clients that I was working to promote, in the media company I worked for, were the exact same companies that were destroying the earth. So for some weird reason, something like a conscience came up in me, and on the one hand, I was not feeling inspired to do it anymore, sales and marketing, and at the other hand, knowing that a lot of the stuff that I was helping to promote didn't make was actually bad for people, was bad for the world, that just stopped making sense. So so what happened was that and this happens a lot in my life when I get, when I stop feeling driven to something, then I just basically quit my job. I didn't have anything else. I just quit my job knowing that I was never going to work in sales anymore. So I had a company car. I had, all the stuff that I needed to give back. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And that kind of hit me, 2 weeks later. I really don't know what I'm going to do now. How I'm going to get paid? What the hell did I do? And I was so fortunate that in the company that I worked, there was this trainer who worked with both in sales training, but also in personal development and stuff. And we got along pretty well. And he heard that I quit my job and then I didn't have one. And he basically just called me and asked me if I would be interested in doing some training stuff with him. But it required me to be able to send invoices to him. So I needed to register a company. So that was basically that was how I started my company. It was to be able to send invoices to a person who was asking me to do some sales training with him. So now you can see that, and that was just and that was not meant to go on that way. Because that the projects that they included me in basically only lasted for a couple of months. So after that, I needed to figure something out. But the problem with working like I did for those 2 months, where I was basically my own boss and having the freedom to plan and say yes to stuff that I wanted to say yes to, and no one actually could make me do it, that just left a big impression on me, and it just made me feel like this is actually this is how I felt like I was meant to work that way. I felt like I was meant to be the one who was, in charge of what I want to do. So I basically just I took the skills that I had in marketing, in sales, and also I've always loved to do communication design. It's not a formal thing that I worked with before. It's just something that I'd always liked to do. And then I just basically said to myself, well, I'm just gonna figure out how to do a website, and then I'm just gonna show people what I can do. And then, because I was pretty good at what I did. So I was like, well, this is going to be easy. I can just do this, and then people will like the guys that I worked with at the time. People are just going to find me, and then they're just going to hire me, and I'm going to be a millionaire, and I'm going to fly all around the world. And I was like, and this is only this is okay. This is going to take maybe 3 or 4 months. Then I'm going to have a very good business. Maybe even sooner. So that was my idea. After I stopped the partnership with the training company, I was like, I'm gonna invest. I'm thinking that in 3 or 4 months, I'm gonna have a booming business, and I'm gonna have the time of my life because I'm awesome. So, and as you can imagine, it didn't quite work out that way. at all.
So we are the same like everyone else entrepreneurs. We are so positive. We think it goes so fast and do all this thing, and then we get like, yeah. So what happened?
Well, nothing. Nothing happened. And that was the problem. It was like I made the most awesome website. I made I've worked in sales and marketing for like in my whole career. So I was used to doing sales copy. I was used to doing promotions and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm golden. This is gonna work out perfectly. But no one showed up. And when I went out to pitch to people were like, yeah, this is so awesome, this is so exciting, and I would leave them my business card, or leave them some a brochure or whatever, but they'd never they'd never go back to me. They'd never call back and say, well, let's do the thing that you talked about.
Right.
And it was super frustrating, especially because I actually had the idea that I was the shit. I actually had I mean, if anybody knew how to do that, it would be me.
Yeah.
So what do you do when when all life's gone to shit and you're not making any money, and there's like and there's a lot of questions but no answers, and you're totally frustrated? I found out what you do is that you take a coach education. You know, you go to a coaching training education thing. You take at least in Denmark, that's a normal thing to do. You do coaching. So I had the idea. So if I get this coaching education, which makes me, you know, gives me a new skill that I can sell. On top of all the other skills that I couldn't sell, I thought that, you know, getting this skill was gonna, you know, make the difference.
Yeah.
So I went to the bank and I borrowed a shitload of money for that because it was a very expensive education. And I took that education, and while I was doing that, you know, I met a lot of amazing people who were in different processes in life, you know, and like me, basically, everyone was there because there was something that didn't work in their own life. So they went there to, you know, fix themselves and getting a skill to fix others at the same time. It doesn't work that way, by the way, but I figured that out later. So I was the only one who had a business. And the only one who had a business that wasn't successful. So, but people were curious because a lot of them wanted to go out and open their own coaching business, and they talked to me about, you know, what should they communicate, what should they do, and I was open. I told people, well, you know, I'm not that successful at it, but I can give you some pointers, and a lot of people wanted that, you know, that advice from me, and it actually ended up with me doing websites for, I think maybe we were 60 at that at the group that I was going with, and I think it was about 10 or 15 people that actually asked me to do their online communication and their website, and I was like, this is amazing. I mean, it was awesome because I didn't have any money and I needed to start paying back to the bank. So it was like, this is awesome. But I didn't understand at the same time. I didn't understand it because I didn't have a website. I wasn't successful. I didn't have a website telling people that I actually, you know, did websites for coaches and stuff like that. So I just didn't. It kind of frustrated me though, because, you know, I've worked so hard to create my, you know, my business profile and the stuff that I wanted to sell, and it didn't have any momentum. And here I am with something that I don't feel that I'm that good at, and there's a lot of people that want to buy it from me, and I didn't get what that thing was until I was sitting with one of my clients, and we were talking about this, and she was like, it's so awesome to have someone, you know, help you that you can trust and you know, that you feel you know, wants what's best for you. And then it hit me, you know, sometimes, you know, you just get, sometimes people say stuff to you and you don't hear it. But when she said that to me, you know, something just clicked in me. And that thing was that the reason why she wanted, and everyone wanted to have me help them, was because they felt they could trust me. And they felt that I wanted what was best for them, which was true. And that's a feeling that
sorry.
It's a feeling that I you know, I had never thought about the whole trust issue, and especially because I've always worked in big companies with big brands that people knew. So trust was never an issue because people always knew who those brands were, and they know what they did. When I started my own company, people didn't know who I was, and I thought that the way you get people to know who you are is to just, you know, put all the shit out there that you want to share, that you want to sell, and just say, hello, here I am, buy something from me. And just focus on this, on what you can deliver, what you want to sell to people, because that was basically what I did. I never focused on creating trust. I never focused on creating a relationship. I never focused on creating a brand for myself, meaning that someone that people has an opinion on that's positive and that is, something that makes people be interested in you and build that relationship. So at some point when the timing is ready, they're going to be ready to have you help them. So naturally, what happened after that was that I got very, very much into understanding branding, which was something that I basically never had worked with before, because I've always worked, like I said, with companies who were already, they were already very well established in the market. But I wasn't, so I needed to figure out how to create those relationships, and in the same process, which I didn't know at the time, I basically figure out who was I, because I was used to always representing companies. So now I was being myself and a personal brand, which is a very, very different thing. So and after I did that, because the story always has a happy ending, and here it comes. Yeah. After I did that, after I started to work on building relationships instead of building funnels and building strategic advantages, or working all strategic with everything, I focused on creating relationships. I focused on creating trust. I focused on making people see who I am, and therefore and also demonstrate what I could do, instead of just telling people all the stuff that I could do, just then demonstrating it. And it actually didn't take that long. Then the tides begin to turn, and the whole all of the business I was lacking, all the sales, all the potential clients started to show up. But they showed up in this weird way, because they didn't show up like in a normal company where, like, well, hello, we have this, we need this, can you offer this? People were like, they felt like they were calling a friend, and they felt like they were writing a friend. And that was also new to me, because I had never had friendly relationships with my clients before. It was always a very formal thing. It was like you when I communicated with my clients, it was like communicating with the government. It was so formal, and so the rhetoric was so boring. And after I stopped all that, everything changed. And when I was okay with being who I am, and figuring out that being who I am is actually the most important thing in branding, because trust is a feeling. You can't tell people to trust you. Trust is a feeling, and it gets, you feel you trust someone when you feel that they're authentic, and what they're saying is aligned with what they're doing, and stuff like that. And that's when I found out that personal branding and figuring out who you were is actually is much of the same thing, because it's actually aligning who you are with what you do and what you say, and being a good person, basically. So I know that was a long story, but it's a true story, and that's how everything turned for me. And that was, and that was and also is still the defining moment where I effectively made a strategic decision without knowing it, that was going to impact the rest of my time doing business positive, because the time that I've spent on working on relationships is supporting every project that I'm doing. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with me, the relationships that I've created is because they're so good, and because I'm very genuine in the relationships I'm creating. I think it's easier for me to get support for the stuff that I do than if I hadn't done that in the beginning and keep on doing that. So that's one of the most important decisions that I've made is focusing on building relationships even when you're low on cash. Because you do some weird shit when you're low on cash, really.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
also done some stupid thing when I'm low on cash, and I also think like so when I work with entrepreneurs and I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they are so afraid of being themselves when it comes to sales and marketing. They feel like they will need to hide behind something. So how did you, or what is your best advice to these people who really think, no, I cannot share everything I have in my thought and the person I'm really am? I cannot do that on in blogs and Facebook and all these things. So what advice do you have for them?
I mean, first of all, I think it's important to know that that there is really some people that are never going to feel comfortable with this thing. No, matter how we do it. But in my experience, a lot of the people who are not comfortable with it, it's more of a it's because it's because they haven't done it before, and at the same time, it's like when you go out there and you're the one, if you get that rejection, you take it very personal, and it's basically the rejection that people are trying not to get. And that's what you learn when you work in sales. It's like you get rejections 99% of the time, and you build a thick skin on that. But for people who haven't worked in sales their whole life, this, it feels devastating when you get that, when people say no to you. And that's never going to change. I don't think that's ever going to change. So the advice I have for people is basically do the same thing that I did, which was, instead of pushing products, then create relationships. Because if you actually have something that is, because I'm not the guy who says that everyone has a product that everyone needs, because there's also a lot of entrepreneurs out there who have something, the product isn't that valuable. But if you have a valuable product, and if you have something that you're good at, then people are gonna want it, and people are gonna feel attracted to it. But they're not gonna feel attracted to you if you're doing something that you don't feel comfortable with. And that's also, when I've worked with people that feel that they should do blogging, or they should do videos, and you can see when they're doing it, they're like, okay, so today we're gonna talk about a very exciting thing that you need very much, and people aren't listening to what they're saying. They're just looking at this scared shitless person who they're like, I don't want to. I want to save that person. I don't want to buy anything from them. I mean, I want to save them from doing whatever it is they're doing, because they're not comfortable with it. And that's what happens when we do stuff we don't feel comfortable about. And that's why a video is the most effective way of communicating, but it's also the most honest way of communicating. So if you don't feel comfortable having the spotlight on you, and if you don't feel comfortable getting rejections, well, then first of all, and I'm sorry to say this, I would definitely think about if this is a way, if this is a job that you're going to find fulfilling, because selling is 50 or 60% of being an entrepreneur, no matter what. But there's different ways of doing it. You don't have to, like we talked about before, you don't have to be in people's face, and you don't have to do sales pitches all the time. If you focus on demonstrating the value of what it is that you do, people are going to want it. And that was also some of the stuff that I did early on, which I didn't do it intentionally. I just figured out afterwards that it actually worked pretty well. And that is when you focus on demonstrating the value of what you're doing, then it becomes much easier for people to say yes to it. But because, like I did in the beginning, I focused on telling people all the awesome stuff that I could do, but I didn't have any proof. I didn't have, a lot of clients that I could showcase. I didn't have a lot of testimonials. I just had my, my good looks and my and my and and my good copy and all that stuff, but I didn't have any proof.
Mm.
And when you don't have any proof, you have to convince. And when you're convincing, that's when it begins to feel, in my experience, that's when it begins for people to feel a little awkward.
Yeah. Push
So
sales. Yeah.
that's why I say to people, especially for new entrepreneurs, people who are establishing their business, the only thing that's important in the beginning is getting proof. That's the only thing that's important, because we all know this. When we look over to US, they have the most ugly websites in the world. They have, some of the most horrible copy in the world, but for some reason, it's just working for, they just have this magnetism. And one of the reasons is that a lot of the people in US have this, ingrown self-esteem. They're used to, being, they're used to selling in one way or the other. But also because they're okay with demonstrating the good things that they've done. And in especially, in Scandinavia, where I am, there's a thing about people not wanting to show what they're good at, because we don't want people to, we don't want to call attention to ourselves. But for people to see who we are, or for people to see what we do, we need to show the world. And if you focus on creating results, and especially results that you're proud of, in my experience, you are going to want to share that with the world. And that's when you start, that's basically when you start a sales process. That's basically because that's when you show people through your demonstration of your results, you show people what it is that you can do, but also demonstrate that you can create value for people, and you can have people tell others about their experience with working with you. And that's the most important thing when we're talking relationship building and trust building, is that you actually understand that it's not just about what you're saying, but it's also about what you're doing and the results that you're creating for others.
Yeah.
So if you are focused on that, sales isn't, and driving sales isn't going to be as big as a problem, as big as a problem. But sales is always going to be, something you need to do. And I don't feel comfortable doing it either. I just know, like doing taxes, it's just something that I need to do, and I need to find a way that works for me. And I'm not sure that the thing that works for me is going to work for you, or is going to work for everyone else. But you need to keep on pushing, and you need to keep on discovering. You need to look after what technique or what way works good for you. If it's the result-based thing that works for you, then do that. If it works for you to write case stories, write a case on a blog, do that. If it works for you to do it on a video because you don't feel good at writing copy, that works too. And if you don't feel good at either copy or video, you can also do an audio. But it's important that people learn what it is you can do and the value of the value you're creating, because when they know that, and if you are and if you have been listening to Peter in a long time, you know how to create a market, and you know how to communicate to the right people. So if you're communicating to the right people and you're demonstrating what you do, it's just a matter of time before people are gonna show up and want what you buy. I mean, that's what I think anyway.
Really good answer. Thank you. I'm also thinking about, because when I started when I asked you in December if you could do a Facebook Live together with me, you was in Hawaii, and you have something called DREAMCATCHER, and what I see in a lot of entrepreneurs, we start with this, or when we start a company, or when we start on a new project, or we think about it, it's like a dream. It's something in front of us that we really want to do, but after a while, this dream, we forget this dream, and we come up in this, when we talk about online marketing, we come up with that, oh, I have to do this, I need to do this Facebook Live every week, or I need to do an email campaign, or I need to do this, or it's not finished, oh, I'm looking for the perfect thing, it's not perfect yet, I can't start yet, instead of go out there. And you also have why, and one of the things I really like with you is like, I have this great feeling about, and when I see you, you are like a free human being. It's like you're free, you're energized, you have all these things. So can you tell me a little bit about dreams? What do you think about dreams, and how can you and how can we dream more?
Oh, that's a lot of good questions. And I love that you see me that way. I really appreciate that. That means more to me than you know, because that is a very, very that is a thing that I haven't always been, and that's maybe part of the reason why I'm so focused on it, and why, also my journey, because like we talked about earlier, what I've been working hardcore with for many years is sales and communication and strategy and all that capitalist stuff. And somewhere down the line, I felt like I grew up, and I felt like that a part of me found myself in that process of working with my personal brand and discovering that the person that I am was not the person that I was, but that was a person that was created by the culture and the capitalist system that I was born into. But I was much more than that, and allowing myself to and that's ever since I've done this, I've always been curious, to explore myself even more, and the more I explore, the more things that I feel that there's the more that I see the world with a brand new view. There's so much stuff that I want to do now. Before, I dreamt of getting a higher salary so I could, get a bigger house, or I dreamt of a higher salary to, buy something else, or I dreamt of, taking a vacation somewhere so I could, work on myself and figure out what I wanted in life. That was the kind of dreams that I had, and they were all based on money. First of all, money was the driving force for me for everything that I dreamt of, which was also it's designed that way. That's the culture that's designed us to think that everything you want in life is something about money, because that's what makes you, stay in the system. But as I got to get to know myself in a new way and figure out what meant something to me, I found out that what I actually dream of, a lot of the stuff has nothing to do with money. A lot of the stuff has to do about feelings. And you and I know this, that when I dreamt about, having a bigger place and, making more money so I can have a bigger place and stuff like that, we know now that I was actually, I was dreaming of a feeling. But at that time, I didn't know that I could have that feeling without, making more money. And when I learned that the world isn't necessarily the way that I learned it was when I was growing up and working in the traditional capitalist system, I just started, writing a lot of the stuff down that I wanted to explore in life, that I wanted to experiment with in life. And
I just need to stop you a little bit, because I think it's so important. Because I hear so many people who are just like, oh, when I just get that new house, everything will be perfect. Or when I just get that new car, everything will be perfect. Or just that one more client, everything will be perfect. Oh, is I just so we are manipulating ourselves to think that if we just get that extra thing, everything will be perfect. But it's just a bullshit. So sorry, I just need to. And yeah,
But
please
it's so
continue.
true. It's so
Yeah.
true. And but you don't know that, when you're caught in that system. And that's so the freedom that I feel today is more of a mental freedom than a physical freedom.
Mm,
So some years ago, I shared a before and after image of me, an image that was taken when I was working as a sales executive, and an image that was taken 10 years later. And when you look at me and you look in my eyes, I look like 10 years younger. I was, there was so much life in my eyes, and now, and that there wasn't when I was working as a robot in the
mm,
capitalist
mm,
system.
mm,
But and that's because I wasn't mentally free. I felt that if I just make more money, I was going to be free. But I never thought that making more money is just going to enslave me more, because the more money you make, the bigger stuff you commit to, and the less flexible you are.
mm,
So for me, it just, when I got out of that funk, it was just important for me to start exploring life, exploring myself, exploring the world, and most of all, which was something, a totally new concept for me, which was starting to giving to people, starting to doing something that for others, that wasn't just for me. And which was one of the reasons why I did the Dreamcatcher recently.
mm,
That's for me. That's something that I've dreamt about doing for others for a long, long, long time.
mm,
And the same thing about going to Hawaii for 2 months. Being able to travel the world, being flexible. That's also a dream. But it is not. It's not a dream that is grounded in money, and it's not grounded in it's something that I need to do to explore myself and explore life. It's
mm,
not about me being happy, because when I understood that I already was happy with everything that I had or didn't have, it started for me to be about exploring and figuring out what life was about, meeting new people, and at the same time keeping hope alive, which is what I feel dreams are. It's like constantly having something positive that you go towards.
mm,
But also, and I know you're going to like this, because this is important to you as well. Dreams are only, dreams are awesome, but they can also kill you if you don't do anything about them.
mm,
So if you keep on thinking about stuff, if you keep on mentalizing your dreams, and you're writing them down, and you're doing all these rituals, but you're not acting on them, dreams can
mm,
also be a very draining thing. It can be a frustrating thing. It can be something that pulls you down, when it actually is something that should be pushing you forward.
mm,
And that is because we are, in my opinion, we are all caught in the same net of instant impulses, from whether it's work or it's the online media, or whatever it is. We are bombarded with stuff that we have to think about every day.
mm,
And that and if you also have a new business that you're creating, or you have a business that you're maintaining, or you have a job and you have a family, you don't have that much mental capacity to make those steps that you need to make every day, to feel that you're going somewhere, because it's so important that you feel that you're progressing. um and that's one of the biggest, maybe one of the best things that I've been doing in the last couple of years, has been working on how I can make more mental room for myself. How can I cut down on all the impressions? And I'm not saying that all of my strategies are going to work for everyone, because they're not. Because one of them is actually moving into the woods, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of people. But one of the most distracting things for me before was my phone, and my phone, and and social media. That was the two most distracting things. And at some point, I needed to test whether or not it was going to, be effective. I mean, you know the answer to this, but whether or not it's going to be effective to actually have a period of time where you never have my phone was always on silent. I never let it interrupt me. And I found this awesome freedom app, or awesome app called freedom.to. And what it does is that it blocks the access to Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is on your phone, on your laptop, in a specific time that you define. And you can do it once, or you can have it do it like every day from like 4 in the morning to 8 in the afternoon. And the cool thing is, because the problem with a smart guy like me is I always find a way to, well, I'll just shut it off, and then I'll go back to, and then I'll turn it on again when this important thing is over. The cool thing about that app is that you can't turn it off. So the only way to turn it off is to write their support, which is in US, and there's a time difference. So if you write them, it's gonna take at least 6 or 7 hours before they're able to process your request. And then I felt like this cigarette. I was like getting off a cigarette. So like, and then the whole craving stopped. So after a half an hour of not being able to access it, I forgot about it. And that's what and implementing that tool and making sure that I can't access social media in a specific time frame every day, and also having my phone not disturb me, and only letting it disturb me when I feel like it's supposed to disturb me. I mean, and this is so simple, but it's so goddamn effective when we're talking about creating mental room in your head, because it's the mental room that creates room for creativity and room for thinking about the stuff that matters. There is nothing on Facebook, including what you and me are talking about right now, that is more important than working towards your dream. Nothing more important. And that's why the only thing that matters, and which is one of the key concepts of the Dreamcatcher journal, is that you have to make sure that you plan steps every single week towards your dream. Because if you don't do it every week, then you're going to forget it. It's like you can't lose weight by just showing up in the gym every other week. You can't. So you need to show up 2 or 3 times a week in order to get in shape. And that's the same thing. No matter what it is that you want to do, there's a process from where you are to where you want to go, and that creates and that requires you to make some steps. And those steps are important to take every single week in order for you also to keep the momentum going and getting motivated. But the problem is still that a lot of the stuff that for example, just creating the Dreamcatcher, creating, because like I told you in the beginning, I love doing creative stuff. So everything about the Dreamcatcher is something that I've created. All the content, all the setup of the book, the visuals, the graphics, everything in that book is something that I've created. But it also takes some time, and it takes some focus. And it's not, when you're doing a book, I've published a book before, it's like in the beginning you're super psyched, and then it begins to become either hard, or there's stuff that you can't figure out, and then you tend to you tend to find excuses to not do it. And I'm the same way too. I'm totally the same way too. But I'm also I'm very easy to motivate, because like everyone else, I just need some sort of instant gratification. I need a carrot, if I do this, then I know the book isn't going to be finished, but what then could I get? Could I give myself something for doing this? And I know this sounds silly, but it works for me, and I know it works for a lot of people, that making sure that there's actually carrots with every single thing that you do. is a super effective way to make sure that you feel motivated to do the stuff that you don't necessarily feel like doing, because it takes time, for example, to create a book, and you're not going to get that instant gratification every day when you're working on your book, or you're not going to get that instant gratification when you start as an entrepreneur figuring out what your target audience is, or figuring out what Facebook strategy you're going to use. It's not going to be something that's necessarily fun to do, but it's something that you need to do. It's a step in order for you to go to whatever goal it is that you have. And I just found out, at least for myself, that making sure that there's carrots and motivation every week, like there's also, there's steps that you take every week. When you combine those two, then you start that momentum that is so important for progress, because when first momentum is going, you don't need carrots. You're just going because you stop doubting if this is going to be something. You go from in the beginning to hoping, and then you meet that roadblock, and then it's like, oh well, maybe it wasn't that a good idea. No, it was a good idea, but you're just gonna, you're always gonna have roadblocks. I know. There's this graph called the Day of a Life in the Entrepreneur. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like, it goes like this. It's like, everything's good. Oh no, I'm fucked. Oh, everything's gonna good. Oh, I'm never gonna get anywhere. Oh, now it's good. It's like, that's how it is, and that's how it is when you're catching your dreams. It's like it's always going to be difficult, and that's why you're gonna love it in the end. Because it's not funny if it's just easy to do. So being consistent in planning initiatives to whatever it is that you want to do is important, and understanding that dreams is something that makes you feel good when you think about it, but when you are realizing your dream, when you're actually living your dream, that's when your life changes. And dreams doesn't have to be big stuff like building a business. Dreams can also be having like I did, being taking a couple of weeks and working in Hawaii, for example, and figuring out if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who can actually host you, so you don't have to pay a shitload of money to live there, but you actually can get to know some awesome people there, and in that way, maybe have more dreams come true, which could be to expand. A dream could also be to expand your network and have more awesome people in your life. So dreams doesn't have to be these crazy big things. It's just, dreams is just, for me, a metaphor of positive things and goals that we're feeling either pushed towards or drawn to, and understanding that, especially the things that keep on showing up, that there's a reason for that. There's a reason for the things that keep on knocking on your door. It's not a coincidence. This is something that you need to discover. And the cool thing is that you're not going to understand why before you get going. And that's, cool, and also pretty frustrating. So, my God, I'm talking so much. I'm sorry, Peter.
No, it's inspiring to listen to. So what about they were listening now? Do you have any questions for Jesper, or is this inspiring, or do you like it, or write something in the chat so we can hear that we are see that we are not just talking to each other. And what is your next dream, Jesper?
Mine, so I don't have them so my current dream was to publish the DreamCatcher. So my biggest dream is actually to create, and that's what I'm working on at the moment, is to create a new culture in the way that we're working, and is to define some new norms and some new job titles that aren't here right now, that are fitting into into the world that we're living. Because now there's we have this big movement going on, and you and I are a part of it, like everyone else, of people working in different ways and getting ready for this future that no one knows how it's going to be. And I'm not talking about Trump, but I'm talking about, is there going to be an education system in 15 years? Is there going to be is there going to be a Walmart in 10 years? Is there, all of the stuff where technology is going to advance our human race is also going to present us with a lot of interesting challenges as human race. So for me, it's important now to start working on creating a new culture where people that think like you and me do, and I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening and wanting to live a more creative life, experiment more, and figure out, not just that one thing that you can do, but those 20 things that you can do. What can you do with them, and who can you do stuff with? And that just, it requires some new norms, and it requires some new ways of looking at life and work and life and work together. So for me, my biggest dream and is basically to see that everyone, when you meet them, that you characterize them just like you did me before, like they are totally free souls. They're free inside. That's my biggest dream, is that to make sure, and for me, push that, some of the information out there who might start that transformation process, and make sure that a lot more people understand that there's so much more to them than they're showing at the moment, and being able to contribute with that is my biggest dream, and of course the people actually wanting it. So, but that's also, that's when your dream is something in the contribution area or even the business area, there's always going to be that possibility that people just want it. And that's why it has to be important. If it isn't important, like if your dream isn't important, you're not going to go the full length to get it. So this is something that is very, very important for me, and for the people who know me, my close friends knows that this is something that I've been talking about for 10 years, and I've been waiting for someone to go out and talk about this, because I've never seen myself as the inspiring person. I've never seen myself as the person who was. I mean, I've always worked with people who are inspiring. We talked about this before the session here. I've always worked with the people that I thought was inspiring, but I never saw myself as an inspiring person. So I've always waited for someone else to come in and say the stuff that I want to say, because I didn't think that people wanted to listen to me. But for some reason I just kept on following that impulse of me sharing and being more me and sharing my process, which is also what I've been doing. And for some reason, people just, they keep on listening, and the more important it is to me, is what I'm finding out, is the more people want to listen, but they don't want to listen to the stuff that isn't important, because they can't feel my excitement when it's not important. I hope that you feel, and the people watching feel, that this is something that I'm really excited about, the stuff that we've been talking about. And that's what I believe is also important, is that it has to be something that comes from a deeper place, and it has to be something that you are driven to do. And when you go with that, people are going to listen, people are going to support you, people are going to buy from you, no matter what it is. Yeah.
Let me see here. There was someone writing something. Let me say, hey, yeah, I wrote something here. Let me see. I can find it on the screen. There. This is very interesting. How is the world going to look in the near future, and we can be a part of it, and how we can influence it? Don't wait for anyone else to go ahead. Just do it. And yeah. I'm so agree. And I think like it's like you said, I never also saw myself like or an inspiration person when as we talked about, I met a guy from Canada like for 4 days ago down here in Vietnam, and he was just quitting his job. He's also a coach. I didn't know it when I started to talk with him. But he quit his job, was an engineer, and was working like a coach in the engineer business, and took with his family and was traveling for 1 year. And he said he got so many feedback back to Canada, like, "Oh, you're so inspiring." And he said, "I'm just living my life." And it's the same like you're doing,
Yeah.
and I'm doing. We're just living our life, and we're doing the things that we feel is the right things to do, without listening to all these voices in the head or voices from all the family and all the friends and everyone else who are saying you can't do it and it's not great. And when you're creative like you are, and also I'm quite creative, we do all this crazy stuff. And I have one more question for you. How did you say you're living your dream, and Hawaii was a dream? And when did you decide to go to Hawaii?
2 weeks prior to going. And that
I
is
just love it.
That's how I live my life basically now, and that's why the impulse just got created. And the story is that out of the blue, I mean, this is going to be a little hippy jippy, so just bear with me. I just got back from a quick 1 week vacation in Spain with my mother, where it was still hot, and I was standing in the airport, and I said to her, I need some more vacation. I can feel this is so good for me. This is so good for my creative process. A week away. We didn't have any summer in Denmark, so I just needed to go somewhere that was hot. So, but I was just wishing it. And 2 days later, out of the blue, I get this request via Airbnb for a guy who asked if he could rent my house for a month and a half. And normally, I would be like, I'd say no because I didn't have any plans. But then I was like, well, this could be an opportunity. So, and for some reason, I have a very good friend living in Honolulu on Oahu in Hawaii. And she came and visited me in the summer, and we talked about, if there's ever going to be a possibility for me to come to Hawaii, we should take it. But the problem is that it's super expensive to live in Hawaii. The housing the rent is expensive, and it's expensive to live there. So, it would only work if we could find, some weird, crazy way for making it work. So I asked her if she knew of any possibilities, and 2 hours later she was like, "Well, this is so weird, but I actually have this friend who has this Airbnb room that she normally rents out, but it's actually it's free in this in this period of time where we need it. So you can actually rent this, and you can and she wants to help you out and give you a good price for it." And this is always what happens to me. It's always, when I follow that impulse and it feels right, things always work out, which is also what happened with this whole Hawaii adventure. Of course, I was lucky enough to not have any important fiscal meetings. I needed to go back in the beginning of January because I had a workshop in Zurich in Switzerland for the EU. But if I didn't have that, I was actually going to stay there longer. But everything just fell into place, and I've experienced this so many times now that I know when something like that impulse of that guy, coming out of nowhere with this this non-normal request, I know something's up, and I have to go with it. And I have to, put some stuff into play, and because it's not going to form itself for me. It's not going to just, carry me to Hawaii. I need to do stuff, but I need to show the world that, or the universe, or whatever you believe in, that I actually want to go to. So, I set some things into play, And oh, and by the way, the ticket for some reason also was super cheap. So it was super weird. Everything worked out, and I had the best time of my life there. I've met so many awesome people there. You know, living there for 2 months is not only just a beautiful place, but there's so many beautiful people there that I'm now honored that I can call friends. And you know, if you'd asked me 10 years ago when I was sitting there in my sales executive job, you know, if I've been presented with the same opportunity, I'd said no. That's way too risky. Anyway, and there's so much that can happen. And you know, what if something happens to my house while I'm gone? And you know, all those excuses. But now I'm showing up every time that a possibility shows up, and that's no matter if it's a traveling possibility or it's a speaking possibility or a possibility for someone to cook food for me, could also be. But so yeah, that's how I ended up in Hawaii, and I hope that I'm gonna be back there soon again to see some of the cool people that I met there.
Cool. And I see the time is running out, so thank you, Jesper. And it was really inspiring to have you, and speak with you and listen to you. So, and someone asked me if you can share this. Of course, you can share it, and it's possible to watch it after. So, if you want to share it and you think this was something other people also should listen to, it's just to share it and go to my Facebook page and look at it again and again and again if you want. So thank you again, Jesper, and thank you for joining today on Facebook Live. And bye to everyone.